Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits US, all eyes are on the symbolism, optics and atmospherics. The visit has been accorded the highest diplomatic reception reserved for closest allies, the status of a state visit. There are several other aspects that make it unprecedented. A private dinner with the Bidens yesterday, followed by a rare opportunity to address the joint session of the Congress for the second time, and plethora of other infrequent protocols, clearly showing that Modi is a valued guest as the representative of India. A constant highlight in the photo opportunities has been the camaraderie between the two leaders of the world's most prominent democracies. And the significance of this meeting of minds was spelled out by US President himself. Listen in.
All this matters for America, for India, and for the world. We face an inflection point, one of those moments that only come around every several generations, when so much is changing technologically, politically, socially, and environmentally, that the decisions we make today are going to determine our future for decades to come.
Post-COVID काल में वर्ल्ड ऑर्डर एक नया रूप ले रहा है। इस कालखंड में भारत और अमेरिका की मित्रता पूरे विश्व के सामर्थ्य को बढ़ाने में पूरक होगी। ग्लोबल गुड के लिए वैश्विक शांति, स्थिरता और समृद्धि के लिए दोनों देश साथ मिलकर काम करने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। हमारी मजबूत स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप डेमोक्रेसी की ताकत का स्पष्ट प्रमाण है।
Before proceeding forward, the business end of the summit, the Prime Minister also enjoyed the Biden's hospitality, a sumptuous spread customized to Indian Prime Minister's sensibilities, with millets and millet items making proud presence there, clearly carrying the message from India to Washington, D.C. and to the White House. However, as they say, there is no such thing as a free lunch or a private dinner in this case. So what is it that prompted this spectacular reception? The main reason had been spelled out by the US President himself, that Modi is making a difference. Even as he entered the White House, Prime Minister's global approval ratings were topping the charts. A survey by ratings tracker body Morning Consult put the Indian Prime Minister ahead of the US and UK, Australia and Canada among others, with 75% approval ratings. Listen in to what US businessmen had to say.
I'm actually incredibly excited about the future of India. I think India has more promise than any large country in the world. I am a fan of Modi. So.
Is that you have a prime minister that really can think innovatively. Let's create some by-country true innovation grants around 4 or 5 areas.
Prime Minister Modi is a man whose time has come at the time that India's time has come. So the potential of India is enormous.
This is India's time to drive incredible growth, and Applied is very, very much looking forward to working together with the Prime Minister.
Very impressed with the vision that he has for India and the advances that India is making.
It was almost as if it was on cue that rating agency Fitch too raised its forecast for the Indian economic growth to 6.3% from the current fiscal year 23-24 from the earlier projected 6%, a growth rate that is amongst the highest in the world. As the world's 5th largest economy with the 3rd largest defense budget, India's material capabilities give it an opportunity to influence the international order, and brand Modi's global recognition transformation has been all too visible, from rockstar Prime Minister to the boss to most popular, the high praise that has come from all quarters. But it is not just about testimonials from world leaders. Prime Minister's performance has also spoken for itself, with data to back the claims, putting India on the global map as a bright spot in the otherwise dark horizon. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the legitimate question on the Newshour tonight. Has delivery silenced the doubters? That's the question, and that's the debate coming up on the other side.
You're watching the Newshour at 9, debate number 1, on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
And before we get to our very august panel this evening, where Ambassador Kenneth Juster, former US Ambassador to India, joins us. Dr. Abrahams Max, Associate Professor, Political Science, Northeastern University, Boston, also joining us. He met the Prime Minister yesterday in New York. Farwa Amer, Director of South Asia Initiatives, Asia Society Policy Institute, slated to meet the Prime Minister tomorrow. Of course, Mr. Kanwal Sibal, former Foreign Secretary, our friend right here in India, joins the Newshour tonight. But before I come across to you, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to play out what the Prime Minister and President Joe Biden spoke at the beginning of that bilateral meeting between just the President and the Prime Minister in the room.
राष्ट्रपति जी, मैं आपका हृदय से बहुत बहुत आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ और डॉक्टर जी बाइडेन का भी हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ, जिस प्रकार से आपने गर्मजोशी से मेरा और हमारे डेलीगेशन का स्वागत किया। और विशेष रूप से मैं आपका आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ, आज आपने व्हाइट हाउस के द्वार भारतीय समुदाय के लिए खोल दिए और हजारों की तादाद में भारतीय समुदाय अमेरिका भारत की भावी रणनीति के साक्षी बनने के लिए आज हमारे बीच मौजूद थे।
Your Excellency President Biden, I once again express my heartfelt gratitude to you and to Dr. Jill Biden for the hospitality and the respect that you have shown to me and my delegation. And more importantly, because you opened the doors of the White House today for the Indian American people, and they were there in thousands to witness the future of our strategic partnership.
एक्सेलेंट, आप हमेशा भारत के एक बहुत अच्छे शुभचिंतक रहे और जब भी आपको जहां भी अवसर मिला है, आपने हमेशा भारत और अमेरिका के संबंधों के महत्व को बहुत बड़ा बल दिया है, बहुत बड़ी ताकत दी है। और मुझे याद है कि 8 साल पहले यूएस इंडिया बिजनेस काउंसिल को संबोधित करते हुए आपने बहुत महत्वपूर्ण बात कही थी और आपने कहा था, आवर गोल इज टू बिकम इंडिया बेस्ट फ्रेंड। ये आपके शब्द आज भी गूंज रहे हैं। भारत के प्रति आपकी यही व्यक्तिगत प्रतिबद्धता हमें अनेक बोल्ड और महत्वाकांक्षी कदम उठाने के लिए प्रेरित कर रही है। आज भारत अमेरिका स्पेस की ऊंचाइयों से समुद्र की गहराइयों तक, एंशियंट कल्चर से लेकर के आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस तक, हर क्षेत्र में कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर चल रहे हैं।
Your Excellency, you've always been India's friend and well-wisher for a very long time. And whenever you have got an opportunity, you've always given force and strength to our bilateral relations. Excellency, 8 years ago, while addressing the US-India Business Council, you had said, our goal is to become India's best friend. And it is this personal commitment of yours towards India that is inspiring us to take many bold and ambitious initiatives. Today, India and the US are walking shoulder to shoulder in every field, from the depths of the oceans to the heights of the skies, from ancient culture to artificial intelligence.
डिप्लोमेटिक दृष्टि से जब किन्हीं दो देशों के बीच संबंधों की बात की जाती है, तो अक्सर औपचारिक जॉइंट स्टेटमेंट, वर्किंग ग्रुप्स और एमओयू उसी के दायरे में आमतौर पर बातचीत होती है। इसका अपना महत्व है ही, लेकिन भारत और अमेरिका के रिश्तों का असली इंजन हमारे मजबूत पीपल टू पीपल संबंध है, और इस इंजन की एक जोर भरी दहाड़ हमने अभी बाहर व्हाइट हाउस के लोन पर भी सुनी है।
Excellency, whenever there is talk of relations between any two countries from a diplomatic point of view, people often talk about some common joint statements, working groups, MOUs. All these definitely have their own importance, but the real engine of the Indian-US relationship is our strong people-to-people ties, and we just heard a spirited roar of that engine out on the White House lawns.
Excellency, जैसा आपने कहा, मैं उसे फिर से दोहराना चाहूंगा। आज की तेजी से बदल रही वैश्विक स्थिति में सभी की नजर विश्व के सबसे दो बड़े लोकतांत्रिक देशों पर है, भारत और अमेरिका पर है। मेरा मानना है कि हमारी स्ट्रेटेजिक सजदा मानव जाति के कल्याण के लिए, वैश्विक शांति और स्थिरता के लिए, लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों में विश्वास रखने वाली सभी ताकतों के लिए बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है और पहले से कहीं ज्यादा महत्वपूर्ण है। मुझे विश्वास है कि हम मिलकर पूरे विश्व के सामर्थ्य को बढ़ाने में अवश्य सफल होंगे।
Your Excellency, as you said, and I would like to reiterate that, in today's rapidly changing global situation, all eyes are on the two largest democracies of the world, India and America. I believe that our strategic partnership is important for the welfare of the humankind, global peace and stability, and for all countries believing in democratic values. And this is important than ever before. I am confident that working together, we will be successful in enhancing the strengths of the whole world.
आज हमारी बातचीत में हम ऐसे ही कई मुद्दों पर बात करेंगे और अपने स्ट्रेटेजिक संबंधों को नए आयाम से जोड़ेंगे। मैं एक बार फिर आपको आपकी मित्रता के लिए हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूँ।
We will talk about many such issues today. We will add new dimensions to our strategic partnership. I once again express my heartfelt gratitude to you for your friendship. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Clearly a camaraderie on display there. And Ambassador Juster, I would like to really ask you, you've been on the sidelines of many such meetings. I want to ask you, is this really India that is making its presence felt on the global stage, or like many people in the world are saying that, okay, this is just a photo opportunity? How do you see this camaraderie and this relationship between India and the United States today?
Well, thank you very much. I think India has already made its presence felt on the global stage, and the U.S.-India relationship has been transformed over the last 20 plus years. This state visit is another major step forward in cementing that strategic partnership, and there clearly is a lot of good feeling between the two leaders, although I've seen Prime Minister Modi meet with other American presidents and also have a tremendous chemistry and positive relationship with them. But this state visit will be highlighted by both the warmth that comes with the state visit and the personal relationships involved, as well as a lot of the substantive issues that will be coming out of the meeting, both in the areas of defense and technology.
Ambassador Juster, I'd also like to ask you, is India merely a strategic partner because of its geopolitical presence in a certain geography? Given the relationship between the United States and China, is India providing that alternative, or is there more to this relationship other than just the strategic requirement?
I think there's much more to the relationship. Obviously, the rise of China in recent years has added impetus to it, but the relationship was transformed beginning at the turn of this century when India and the United States both had workable relations with China. And it was transformed because India was inevitably going to be a leading power in the Indo-Pacific region. It's a democracy, and the United States and India both felt we should have a better relationship than we'd had during the Cold War. And we've worked through and developed over the last 20 plus years interactions across virtually every issue of human endeavor. Kanwal Sibal and I were involved in this from 2001 forward, and the transformation that's taken place in the last 20 plus years is hard to have imagined at that point in time. Now, in recent years, the rise of China and the concerns that have been raised by its expansionist behavior have given greater strategic clarity to both India and the United States in terms of that challenge, and that has further accelerated some of the work together in defense, technology, and elsewhere. But the relationship is deep and broad for reasons far beyond just the rise of China. And one of the major elements of it is the people-to-people relationship, which has an Indian-American diaspora of over 4 million people, and there are close to 1 million U.S. citizens living in India, and often the children of Indian couples when they studied or worked in the United States. So there's a lot of elements to it. We work together across education, agriculture, space, economic issues of trade and investment, energy, the environment. But clearly, in recent years, there's been an added focus on the challenge presented by the rise of China.
Let me also get in Dr. Abrahams, Max, and I want to ask you. You met with the Prime Minister yesterday in New York. What was your meeting like? And is Prime Minister Modi, somebody who's promising as a global leader, especially carrying the message of the largest and most populous democracy of India?
What I was most impressed by is that we weren't, given any notes about how to conduct ourselves. We were able to ask anything, to say anything. There were really no limitations on how we were to engage with the Prime Minister. And I was also impressed, in terms of the seating arrangement. We were all seated together around this circle. And we went around and we each, said whatever we want to say. And one by one, he listened to us and responded to us through a translator. And in a way, it's kind of the opposite of the criticisms I've seen in the media about him, which is that, he's very much protected. He's very insular. He's authoritarian. He doesn't give any access. It's very sort of hierarchical. And this seemed almost like a free-flowing, democratic exchange. Obviously, I don't want to read too much into that. This is just my one interaction, but it will certainly stay with me.
Well, absolutely open, and he's somebody who's quite a natural, who can just about carry forward any conversation. Don't we know that, Secretary Kanwal Sibal, because that's the way the Prime Minister is. Great orator, never short of words. And I'm not surprised that he had a free-flowing interaction with those who came to meet him yesterday. But the question that I also want to ask you, does it show the depth of the Indian foreign policy, given the fact that Prime Minister Modi is at the high table in the United States, the only Prime Minister from India to address the joint session of the Congress twice over. At the same time, when it is doing business with Russia, is seen as a messenger of peace in the world, stands by Ukraine, in a very complex global situation. Do you think it gives the foreign policy a few notches, it takes it a few notches above its normal graph that we've seen in the past?
I think in a larger perspective, you need a substantial power like India to be able to act as a bridge between the West and the East, if you like. Now, if India was not there and joined either of the two camps, there will be really no effective, plausible bridge left. Can you think of any other leader in the world today that can, at a given moment, act genuinely as a bridge, as a kind of a mediator, not in the formal sense, of ensuring that the world doesn't get fragmented further into two distinct camps, which then would lead to more and more instability. So I think by following the policy we have followed for a variety of reasons, India is keeping itself in reserve to be able to bridge these differences. We are members of Quad, we are members of ITU2, there's another Quad now of UAE, Saudi Arabia, India, United States. Our bilateral ties with the United States are the most important we have in the world today. It's our biggest economic partner. And now we are embarking on a new area altogether, which is very critical for the future of both countries, where American talent and Indian talent can come together and give alternative choices to the world, where in areas in which China has become dominant, has taken an advance, and given its totally non-transparent, opaque, self-seeking, expansionist policy, it is a threat, frankly, to the international community, which must have alternatives, and therefore, this ICET initiative, which is directly owned by the White House and the National Security Advisor, is very important in terms of signaling the intentions of the United States vis-a-vis India in terms of future partnership. That is one aspect. The other is that India is part of SCO, part of BRICS. It is effectively trying to take the leadership of the global south, which also is very helpful to the United States, because China actually has begun to dominate the global south through its economic power, financial power, its BRI initiative and everything else. So if we can, along with the United States, because we have understanding on connectivity and on many other areas in which China is posing a challenge, we can together help in the development of the global south and give them alternatives, especially in terms of infrastructure, which again is very important. And of course, the Indo-Pacific and everything else, where it's not a question of either United States or India seeking a conflict with China. It is to deter China's expansionism and its geopolitical ambitions. And the way to do that is to prevent a conflict by setting up deterrent capabilities which China can see, which is why, again, in terms of what we are doing together in the maritime space, is very important. So I think India and United States can become closer and closer, but that should not preclude India as an Asian power to keep its foot deep into Asian geopolitics, otherwise we'll be excluded. China is already dominating the Asian landmass, and if we break ties with Russia or weaken ties with Russia, and Russia begins to lose India as a trustworthy partner, then we have a problem. We have a problem as an Asian power. And therefore, it's very important, even for United States, that we keep our channels open to Russia so as to prevent a further consolidation of Russia and China ties at the expense of the rest of the countries of the world. So I think we are following a very sensible policy, and I think the Americans have begun to appreciate that. They are being very pragmatic about it. Initially, yes, they were very unhappy about a lot of things, but now, given that there is an invitation from the White House, there is an address to the U.S. Congress, there's warmth, I think it's very good in terms of the future of both countries.
Well said, Secretary Sibal. Let me also get in Farwa Amer, Director of the South Asia Initiatives. And I want to ask you, you're slated to meet with Prime Minister Modi tomorrow. What are your expectations? After, of course, you've heard Dr. Abrahams-Max, who's already met him. What are you looking forward to? Could you turn on your mic, please? Afraid we're not getting that audio from Ms. Amer. Ambassador Juster, just before I let you go, I just wanted to ask one last time, about the bipartisan support to India, because this is the second time the Prime Minister will be addressing the Congress. Do you think that's a big signal as far as the importance of India is concerned?
Well, I think it is significant that he has been asked by the U.S. Congress to address him. He's now in his 9th year as Prime Minister. He's made a number of trips here. India is a very important country, and there's a big India caucus in the United States Senate and House. I think it may be the largest country caucus, and so it's natural that members of Congress would want to hear the Prime Minister. Every member of Congress doesn't necessarily have the same view of the U.S.-Indian relationship, and that may come out in comments that arise during the visit, but everyone recognizes that India and Prime Minister Modi are significant players in the international system and a significant partner of the United States. And so I think it is only appropriate that not only does he have these meetings with the president and the executive branch, but also with members of Congress and also, as has been indicated, members of the business community, thought leaders, and others. It's an important next level step in our relationship between the two countries. And as indicated by others, we expect to hear some significant announcements in terms of our enhanced defense cooperation, the co-production of GE engines for fighter aircraft in India, the purchase of armed drones from the United States, and co-production of the GE engines and the transfer of technology to India, and a lot of other elements relating to critical and emerging technologies and artificial intelligence, semiconductors, and the like. So this visit will have a bit of everything in it and is, again, one that has been much anticipated and I think will be very important in enhancing our relationship.
Well, on that note, we're looking forward to that address to the joint session of the Congress, which is 4 hours from now. Thank you very much to all our esteemed guests joining us.